interesting. Yuan, the Chinese, currency, because of the appreciation, is actually making it more attractive for Chinese companies to start coming over here.
That's right. We had the nice folks from South Carolina in the other day, the people from the Port of Charleston, and they were telling us that actually South Carolina has been attracting Chinese companies that are building factories there and employing Americans.
How big a factor is the appreciation of the currency, and how much is it just the fact that costs are, flat out rising in China for labor and so forth?
Well, it's both. It's a number of factors. The currency is playing a large role, though. You remember what happened with Japan when the yen went up so dramatically. They moved here. They started buying Rock Center.
Ancient history.
Back in the 80s,
ancient
right?
History. I don't even remember that.
Sure. But there's inklings now. To be sure, so the Chinese foreign direct investment in the U.S. is super tiny. It's 0.3%, and Europe is almost 70%.
Right. But
so
the point is that, I think in your story you said in the last 2 years, it has totaled more than it was in the 7 before that?
That's right, yeah, almost $9 billion of Chinese factories put here.
Right, so you actually now have Chinese factories locating in the U.S. to take advantage of U.S. logistics, labor, all that stuff, to sell Chinese. Now it's interesting. You're going to have Chinese-made products made in the U.S. to sell to a U.S. market.
Just like Japanese cars, right? Those are all made in Alabama and Detroit.
Yeah. Now, to me, I just think, have U.S. labor costs come down so much that we're now relatively competitive with Chinese labor?
Well, it used to be that a Chinese job was about 4% of U.S. costs, and now it's it's something like 15 to 35%. So if you're talking about the bottom end of labor, if you have an industry where labor is not the biggest cost, where you have to pay for shipping and logistics, and you have to pay for your machinery, it may not be worth it. Also, it's faster if you make it here to get it to a customer here. The whole just-in-time manufacturing.
Now, okay, you said that you had the folks in from South Carolina, of course. Is there? I know, you talk about the '80s in Japan. There was a lot of xenophobia about the Japanese taking over. I made a joke about it at the top. Is there any whiff of that? It doesn't seem like there is.
No, although I didn't talk about this in the story, but polls keep showing that Americans overwhelmingly think that the Chinese economy is doing better than it is more powerful than it really is. China is now the second largest economy, but we're the largest economy by a long stretch.
Right, by at least twice.
Right, it's an emerging market.
We all know you can't trust Chinese numbers.
And we're in a position too
not
where
the government data, no.
No, not the government
in terms
data.
of our economy and the people that are employed, it seems like, hey, they don't care where the jobs are potentially coming from.
They do not.
No,
a wage is a wage.
Right.
Martians or whatever setting up factories, as long as there's a job there.
Right.
So do we expect this trend to continue? Do we expect this trend to grow?
Well, the yuan has been rising about 4% a year. And that's gradual, and it's managed. It's a currency that's managed against a basket of other currencies. If Beijing allows it to float, it will probably rise. And there's some indication that they have been liberalizing the rules about what you can do with the currency. They want people to use it more overseas. And if that happens, most analysts think that it will be allowed to float either entirely or mostly. So yeah, it's going up.
It makes you wonder too if some of that bluster about China being a currency manipulator will start to tamp down with this trend.
Not with Chuck E. Cheese humor, man.
Politicians and economists don't really mix.